will provide the revenue to the utilities which they need for the capital plans, then we're all ears. We've been working on this literally for years, and this is the best we can come up with. Absent that, the only question is when to raise the rates. Do we do it in small steps over years, or do we do it in one huge increase? For example, if we raise rates 28.5% on sewer today for 11 and the same amount in 12, if we pass on this year, we would have to raise them a little over 55% next year. That's probably not acceptable. And so, I mean, the problem is, if you say not now, then I have to say when. Can you promise me that you'll come back and say, yes, now is a good time to raise rates? Absent that, I think we've exhausted our choices. Thank you.
Yeah, one of the things that I wanted to point out is that over the last 10 or 15 years, we've done 3% and 4% and 5% increases. And I guess, you know, once in a while, when we're getting beat up here for raising these, it'd be nice to hear somebody say, hey, thanks for having kept them low for the last 10 or 15 years, because we actually were, or are, the lowest in the Clark County right now in our rates. Now, quickly, we're going to go above that, but it, you know, one of the things that increases all of these demands is growth, and we went through a pretty heavy growth time in the last 5 years here. And one of the things that I want to contribute to that is that we did do some things right in the last 20 years. We've made this a great town to live in. I hear people that speak compassionately about how they like it here and why they're here. And this is just one of those bitter pills we're going to have to swallow, is trying to get this up and running. I sit here and think about the times when Trevor talks about adding to the sewer treatment plant, and if in fact he made, I guess it was Jim Dunn made the comment that if we had a 1996 water event like we had, we would probably be discharging raw sewage into the into the Columbia River. We all know how unpopular that is in the Willamette River when it happens in Portland. And so that's why it's important that we get the redundancy put into place so that we don't have those, and we can achieve our amount that we can process. So, you know, like I said, without these increases, we simply can't go any further and stay under the state mandated mandates that they're sending to us. I want to pat the guys on the back in the water and the sewer. These guys are not only are they having their own certificate or maintaining their certifications, but we get compliments from the state or Department of Ecology on a yearly basis of how well these programs are being run, and how good it is that our citizens are safe from any kind of bacterias or that we're not dumping effluent out into the Columbia River. Again, I said at the public workshop that, you know, it's tough because most of us, even up here, are on a fixed income, and anytime we do these increases, it affects us just like it affects everybody else. Everybody else gets this. It's a very tough pill to swallow, but we have to, and give Trevor credit but the last two public works directors before him came to us and said, we need to do this. We need to get these things started being built, putting reserves in place so that we can get some of this done. And when we listened to the public and our own hearts, we didn't go to the larger increases. We stayed at the 3%, 4%, and 5%. And I heard a comment at the workshop that we weren't diligent in doing our job by one of our other council members, and I agree. But we were listening to the public at the time. We were trying to hold it over. And at that time, the economy wasn't nearly as bad as it is today. We didn't foresee this economy being this bad 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years later. But that's why we tried to, at the time, to maintain those 3, 4, 5% increases. And we actually were one of the group that came over and started this process and didn't deliver. But they actually talked about cities, I think it was Forest Grove, had 100% increase in their water and sewer bills. And, you know, it scares everybody that you don't want to do those kind of things. And yet that's what's out there. If we don't get these things done, and I suspect, and I have not heard Trevor say this, but if the state were to come in here and take over, I bet they would increase our rates whether there's a public hearing or not. It would just happen. So they're not very palatable. Like Paul said, we're running on, when times were really good, one of the things I'm proud of is that the council and staff did not gear up and load up on people. We tried to run it lean and mean, even through the good times when all the building was going on. We have money in reserves that we tried, that former Mayor Gard alluded to, that we tried to keep those reserves in place for 2 months at a time. And we simply are trying to bounce off of those reserves and keep from using them. But every time we look at something, while there's some money sitting there, we should use that. So I think that we've done our job. Probably could have done it better when you look backwards over the years when we had those 3, 4, and 5% increases. But there's no secrets here. We have to do this. We have to continue to make the water and sewer operations run.
Mr. Mayor, it does pain me to review this bill. We've heard information week after week that implies that we should pass this agenda bill, and I think it's fairly clear that what we're doing is we're paying the Pied Piper. Tonight, basically, we're standing up and being the adults and taking care of that responsibility instead of what most politicians usually do. And I applaud my fellow council members for their statements to that effect. In order to bring our city in compliance with the state and federal mandates that are imposed upon us, we have to plan for and fund improvements in our city's water and sewer utilities. Let's also be clear about the course before us, though. The rate study, if it's correct in its calculations, states that our water and sewer bills, according to the rate schedule that we're considering tonight, will double in 5 years. So that is a 100% increase that we are voting on tonight, but it's phased in over the course of 5 years instead of just 1 year. And, what politician wants to raise rates? None that I know of. And it's easier to kick the can down the road. But tonight, the can's not being kicked down the road. Some of the mandates that require this rate increase were caused by well-intentioned bureaucrats and legislators in higher offices above us. And on some level, they're mandating that we reduce the risk that the city currently bears. If you take a look at some other cultures in other countries, they have different levels of acceptance of risk. I remember a time that I saw recently in Mexico, a pothole that was 5 feet wide, 10 feet long, and 6 feet deep. It had a single lone traffic cone marking it. No lights, and we were driving at night. That pothole could swallow a car. But for whatever reason, the utility that was in charge of fixing that water main or whatever they were doing in the streets accepted the risk that they were going to put only a single cone out there. And I think we can understand that reducing risk is expensive. The city no longer has the ability to play Russian roulette with our water pressure in Zone 4 regarding fire coverage, or the lack of redundancy in our sewer system to protect the Columbia River. And ensuring that there's less risk to the public is expensive, and with tonight's utility rate increases, we'll see the direct costs of that expensive policy. And as a method of complying with those mandates and reducing the risk, I urge my fellow council members to vote yes tonight on the motions, and I yield the floor.